What's going on, everybody? This is John Jake Gaming on for Mike here, coming at you with a brand new episode of the Memphis Dynasty here on NCAA 12, one of the underrated NCAA games that we do end up having. We had a very successful season here in year number 4, and today what we are going to do is we're going to have the offseason recap where we do multiple things such as not only get ourselves ready for year number 5, but also we are going to give a little bit of a recap of how the season went, go for recruiting, see if we do end up becoming a 5-star program or not, among other things as well. So you're going to want to hop in. We're going to have a great time here, and if you're excited about this episode like I am, make sure you go ahead, smack that like button, hit that subscribe button if you enjoy that video game sports simulation. This is certainly that channel for you, and let's go ahead and dive right into it. So in a nutshell, this is actually how our season went. We went 9-4 once again, which we did end up going 9-4 last year, so our first 2 years here in the Big East have gone extremely well, matter of fact. You know, very good seasons, not great seasons necessarily. We did start off with a big win against Duke. That was against our former offensive coordinator, able to take him down. He finished 4-8. We did, however, lose to some pretty good competition, though. We did lose to Ole Miss 41-21. That was a team that actually did end up going to the national championship game. I'll talk about how they did in the national championship a little bit later. But then we break off 3 straight wins, one against Tulane, as well as Tulsa and New Mexico State. We had a little bit of a bump in the road after that, though. You know, that was the point where we had our starting tailback get hurt. We lose to Michigan State on the road, and we also lose to UConn on the road as well, which is a little bit embarrassing just because UConn did not even make a bowl game. Then we finished the year winning our last 4 out of 5 games before bowl seasons, blowing out USF and Temple as well before beating Cincinnati, Houston, and rounding out the regular season with a close loss to SMU. However, we do avenge all of that in the bowl game, beating Florida Atlantic 34-14. That was what carried us to our 9th win of the season. Now, I did talk about Ole Miss actually going to the national championship game, but they did not win the national championship, however. They did end up losing to Wisconsin Badgers 46-43, 56-43, I should say. So, we played against a team that went to the national championship, and we hung with them for 3.5 quarters. We let them pull away towards the end, but really like that we are starting to get better as a program. And I think playing against better opponents, like an Ole Miss, for example, is really going to bring the best out of our football team. And that should allow us to possibly dominate this conference that we're currently in for years to come. Speaking of those Wisconsin Badgers, though, they do have a Heisman Trophy winner, and easy to see why he ended up winning the national championship. Wisconsin did. Vincent Houston, he's a senior redshirt quarterback from Teaneck, New Jersey. He ends up winning the Heisman Trophy and had a very good game in the national championship. Ended up with nearly 300 yards of total offense, 4 touchdowns as well. Big reason why he's a guy that ended up bringing Wisconsin Badgers a national championship here in year number 4. As for the other award winners, though, we have Robert Givens from Michigan. He wins the Maxwell Trophy. He's only a sophomore, by the way. We also see him win the Walter Camp Award as well. However, for the Bednarik, that stays in the Big Ten Conference, where junior corner Jace Johnson wins it for the Illinois Fighting Illini. He's a hard hitter from Springfield, Illinois. The Nagurski Award goes to the national runners-up, James Ball, a senior redshirt from the University of Ole Miss. He's a pass rusher type from Crystal Springs, Mississippi. As for the O'Brien Trophy, that will go back to Robert Givens. He really collects on the trophy cases this year. For the Walker, that goes to Javon Rove, the running back out of Texas. He's a senior that ran for 1,800 yards. Winnikoff goes to the best wide receiver in college football, and that goes to James East, the senior wideout from the Utah Utes. He ends with 1,300 yards and 20 touchdowns on the season. For the Mackey Award, that goes to the best tight end, and that goes to George Spencer, who ended up with 100 catches, 1,700 yards, and 17 touchdowns. And that will bring it back to the Texas Tech Red Raiders, who's a senior from First Colony, Texas. As for the Outland Trophy, that goes to right tackle Brian Wilson from Georgia Tech. Even though he was injured for decent portions of the season, still a great year with 53 pancakes and just 2 sacks allowed too. For Remington, though, that goes to the best center in college football, and that goes to Kevin Brown. He's a senior redshirt from Waco, and he only allowed 1 sack all season. For the Lombardi, that will also go to James Ball from Ole Miss. The best linebacker actually going to a group of 5 guy. This is John Kerr, the outside linebacker from Western Michigan, who ended up with 5 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, and a defensive touchdown as well. Meanwhile, for the Jim Forpay Award, that will be awarded to Chase Johnson as well. The Grozo Award going to a true freshman by the name of Julius Duchette. He plays for the UNLV Rebels. The Guy Award goes to Kendrick Williams. He's a senior redshirt punter from the University of Alabama. And to wrap things up, the best return man goes to running back Charles McCollum. He's a senior redshirt that plays for the USC Trojans. But before I see if we have any stat leaders on our football team this season, I did want to take a look and see if we had anybody on the All-American list this year. And a lot of those first team guys that we talked about earlier, they are certainly going to be on here. Although we do have a defensive tackle by the name of Pat Taylor. He got in there. He's a first team All-American. You absolutely love to see it in his senior campaign. Dude ends up with 11.5 sacks. Somebody that really developed since his freshman year and is one of the OGs on this roster. We do see a true sophomore also make the first team All-American list too, and that's Eric Davis. Eric Davis, the true sophomore from Montevallo, Alabama. He had a pretty solid season as he played in that starting spot for the first time. Ends up with 8 TFLs and 3 interceptions too. So a good season for Eric Davis, who's one of your guys' custom players as well. Meanwhile, on the second team All-American list, we have our middle linebacker who also happens to be a senior in A.J. Kaysen. The senior linebacker from Augusta, Georgia, had 24 tackles behind the line of scrimmage and was a guy that did a little bit of everything for us. He had 2 interceptions, he had 2 forced fumbles as well, did not have any defensive touchdowns, but very solid football player and somebody that I think we're definitely going to miss as he is supposed to graduate from our football program. So we go ahead now and see if we do have any league leaders in the various NCAA categories. And on offensively, we didn't really have that this year. Riley Bell was just under 3,000 yards. Tufington was actually our lead rusher this season. He ended up with 900 yards rushing, and that's even with him being only the starter for half a season. We weren't even close to a 1,000-yard receiver either. Jamarcus Mitchell was actually our closest guy at 650 yards. But defensively, though, we did some great things. A.J. Kaysen actually led the NCAA with 66 solo tackles. And then Eddie Davis ended up with 56 solo tackles. So we had a 1-2 combination there. And then in terms of sacks, Pat Taylor actually tied for first place in the NCAA with 11.5 sacks, tied with T. Jude of Army. So congratulations for Pat Taylor for essentially being a league leader in that regard. As for interceptions, Ed Davis led the team in interceptions, but only had 3 picks this year. This was not a defense in particular that forced a ton of turnovers, but after the first few games of the season, overall played pretty fundamentally well, I thought. As for NCAA kickers, I am interested to see what our true freshman did, and Tommy Wyatt actually was in the top 20 as a true freshman. He had a long of 51 yards this season, so really like what I'm seeing from the true freshman, and I can see him being on his top 5 list at some point in the season. So one thing that was really nice for us is that we did end up keeping our entire coaching staff, but we already get into one of the more difficult parts of the offseason. we gotta go to the players that are leaving our program. And boy, do we have some good players leaving our football team. Most notably, Justin Brown, senior redshirt from Hollywood, Florida. He was a vocal point of our offense. Although it didn't necessarily show as much in the numbers, he did have 10 yards a carry, which is absolutely insane. Unfortunately, he was somebody that did get hurt in the middle of the season. We did not get a chance to play with him in the bowl game, so that definitely broke my heart a little bit and probably hurt his draft stock because of that. But he is, without a question, one of the best players that have came through our program since we started this series. Meanwhile, we also have guys like Sam Miller graduating. He's someone that has played a very long time, 4-year starter for our program, and also some known heroes on the team. Ali Atkinson, someone that really stepped up in those big moments when we needed him the most. Only had 99 career carries, but he was a piece of dynamite when he got the ball in his hands. Ended up with almost 11 yards a carry in his senior season. Absolutely insane. Also, some other guys graduating includes Chris Washington, Steve Bell, Willie Duckett, quite a few receivers. And we also say goodbye to guys like Matthew Hodge, Nate Coleman, and AJ Kaysen, all of which were starters on our football team and we're going to have to replace some way, somehow. In addition, we do have a few guys attempting to go into the transfer portal, but none bigger than Chris Gentry. Chris Gentry was a guy who did not play very much. He was redshirted, but he still got some stats recorded. 4 tackles, 2 assisted tackle as well. Gonna try to get him to stay because I can really see him as a guy that can really start for us next season now that we have some guys leaving, and that actually worked. Usually that does not work like that, so I'm pleasantly surprised that we're able to get that to go. So we get to keep Chase Gentry. What about these other 2 guys, Trent Bullock and Ed Stanley? We got Dan Daniel and Eddie Davis, so I'm not going to put as much on them. I'm going to try to see if maybe like 30 minutes would be enough, and it works for the one. We'll see if that actually will work for Trent Bullock here, and wow, actually that worked out really well. So we were able to keep all the people going into the transfer portal, but now that begs the question, can we find some talent in the transfer portal as well? But with that being said, we actually don't get the opportunity to bring anybody else in through the transfer portal, so we're going to start with recruiting here. And when we're starting this recruiting period now, NCAA 12 is a little bit different from NCAA 14 in that in NCAA 12, you have 5 weeks in the off season to do your recruiting, right? So very similar to NCAA 06, which in my opinion is the best NCAA game of all time. And I want to go ahead and see how we're doing in terms of our recruiting class. And right now, we have a pretty good recruiting class as is. We have the number 34 ranked recruiting class. We also brought in 4 4-stars already, all of which on the offensive side of the football. But that being said, we brought a lot of talent on that defensive line, bringing in 5 defensive linemen that are 3 stars or better. We've also have already filled our team needs already, but so really at this point, what I'm really looking for is looking for quality players. I don't need to sign too many more guys, but I would like to sign more guys if they're going to be quality guys that fit what we're trying to do for our program. So it'll be interesting to see if we can get to the top 25. And speaking of that recruiting, let's go ahead and take a quick look at what our recruiting board is going to be looking like as we enter the off season. I'm going to filter this out from the I guess what's it called, the guess by caliber. We are going after a 4-star right now. We got Stephen Duncan on our board. We brought him on our board late in the season, and surprisingly, no one was really going after him. I'm surprised the Lock Cheese, while not as effective as it is in NCAA 14, we still have a very good player, and we have a pretty sizable lead over the likes of Auburn, Texas, Penn State as well. We do also have a free star that the assistants have been going after, but what I'm really trying to go after is maybe go after guys like Martin Sullivan and also JJ Martin, maybe sneak in on Jimmy White's board as well. And if these 2-star tackles right here, they want to sign with our program, cool, let them do that, but these 4 to 5 guys right here is what I really want to bring in, but you never know what can happen during off-season recruiting. So what I'll do is every time that we end up signing a person, I'll go ahead and let you guys know about that, and then we'll eventually come back and see where we are at the end of the off-season recruiting. So until the next recruiting update, I'll see you guys there. So I'm gonna do some recruiting off screen now. All right, boys, so we get to week number 2 and already making some good movement. We bring in that 4-star outside linebacker, Stephen Duncan. He's from Donna, Texas, and he's going to be our first 4-star guy. But we hold on the defensive side of football, so that's something that I'm really excited about. We also have this 3-star quarterback, Lionel Parrish. He's the 18th best quarterback in our recruiting class. Right now, he's a soft commit to us, which I'm not too worried about him personally, but I think our assistants, they definitely have this in the bag. Not to mention, we do add yet another 3-star on our team. It's Jonathan Anderson. He's from Lexington, Texas, and he just started his recruiting process, a late bloomer. So hopefully we can keep him in the state of Tennessee. We did offer him a scholarship as well. But in that 3rd week of recruiting, we bring in 2 more guys. We bring in Jonathan Anderson, that 3-star safety that, folks were really excited about. Someone that was actually interested in our program, and it didn't take very long for us to go ahead and bring him into the fold. And then we also bring in the 3-star quarterback, Lionel Parrish, who probably will be someone that will need to be redshirted because we are bringing in a 4-star quarterback as well. But that being said, he's a very talented quarterback and could give us good depth right away too. So then we decide to bring in the 3-star athlete Matt Roach onto our recruiting board. We are the only school to offer him a scholarship. He's a 3-star athlete from Chambersburg, Pennsylvania. But with another week of recruiting completed, we did bring in another player. Now, this one is not as highly touted as maybe most of the other players that we have brought in so far, but he is someone that, if he does make the team, could give us some depth, someone that we can develop. It's 2-star Brent Harrell. He's from Helena, Alabama, and specializes in stopping the run. So maybe with that kind of skill set in mind, certainly we could find a role for this kid, if again does have that ability to make the team. But going into the final week of recruiting, we signed 2 more guys. We're doing a great job with recruiting, but our assistants, they really love their defensive linemen. We bring in a 3-star in Tyrone McIntosh. He's from Lake Jackson, Texas, and he'll be competing for a spot on this football team. So will fellow defensive lineman Kevin Scott, who's a 2-star from Indiana, Pennsylvania. He is more of a pass rusher, but somebody who I could see at best as a developmental piece for our team. And now, let's go ahead and jump into signing day, see if there's any more prospects that sign on the dotted line for us, and where our final recruiting class rankings ended up being at. So in that signing day, we actually finish off extremely strong. We end up signing 4, 5, 6, 7 3-star players on the dotted line to end the season. I really love the way that we finish, and I'm pretty sure that means that we ended up going ahead. Did we use all of our scholarships? That would actually be the first time I think that we would have done that, and it looks like we did. We did use all of our scholarships, so I loved to see that. And look at this class that we bring in. We bring in the number 9 recruiting class in the country, and we do so even though we didn't increase our prestige charges. We remained a 4-star school, which makes a lot of sense. 9-4 in the Big East, that makes sense, and it's kind of a crossroads for a program between, do we want to remain just like a very good program, or do we want to become an elite program? This is one way to do that. We got 5 4-stars too on top of it. This is the full list of guys that we did end up bringing in on the dotted line. And by the way, guys, if you are interested in getting a custom guy in this series, what I typically do, and I will have a template in the pinned comment section, what I typically do is I let you guys replace these players outright and replace them like with your guys' name, include like any like swag that maybe you want to have on your player as well. And we're going to have a lot of options this year. We're going to definitely put it that way. Lots of options for your guys to come in. So I am really curious to see who you guys want to replace in this series and become true freshmen based off of that. But now we go ahead and jump into the position changes that we got to go ahead and take care of. And before we even worry about position changes, look at the type of players that we brought in. You know, Stephen Duncan, for example, Tony Rogers too. We signed some really good players, guys. I'm really excited about this upcoming season. Definitely will have our fair share of freshmen in the starting lineup this upcoming season, and I think they're going to really contribute to our program. Now, that being said, what we did end up doing, first and foremost, we did bring in one athlete. Damon Pierce is that athlete that I am talking about. It looks like on the surface, he would either be a quarterback or a running back. I want to see if he's useful anywhere else, and he's really not, which I'm kind of disappointed about, because we brought in multiple quarterbacks. This is what our quarterback room is looking like right now. Lionel Paris actually turned out really good too, 73 overall. Wow. Might have a little bit of battle between him and Brian Verwerda. Once Riley Bell does graduate, he is going to be a senior. But we have 7 quarterbacks on the roster right now, so I don't know if I want to go in that direction. I think I might stick him at running back, because even with the 2 guys that we brought in, we only have 5 running backs, so not as much depth at the running back position. I think that's what I'm going to go ahead and do. I'm going to put Damon Pierce at that tailback position. We'll see how it shakes out over there, and see if he can carve out a possible role for himself, maybe as a senior redshirt. Could possibly have that kind of Allie Atkinson role, right? That's something that I think he could probably have. But with that being said, we didn't do anything else with position changes. I kind of kept things how they were. Couldn't really move anything to the quarterbacks to a position that could actually help us out, right? So what we ended up doing, this is what our training results look like. And Tommy Watt's going to be our best player on the team. He's an 88 overall, and you know, unlike last year, we won't have really that elite player on offense. It's going to really have to be a team effort. Tufington's going to be our best offensive player at 84, with Riley Bell being at 83. Ruru Nugent's going to be our best defensive player, though. He's a 75 overall, so defensively, we're still going to be lacking a little bit, but we do have some younger players coming up. Daniel and Eric Davis certainly could be some guys to watch out for moving forward. Going a little bit more specific into each position, though, Riley Bell is going to be that starting quarterback that we're definitely going to be looking after. He'll be the second year that he's starting for our team. Tufington, of course, is also going to be our starting tailback. Wide receiver does get a little bit interesting, but it looks like this is going to be our top 5 wide receivers this year. IT Time's going to be our top guy at 73 overall, with Jody Gentry being a 72. Not very highly rated guys, but they definitely have some speed to burn. And then we also have Luke McConnell, Travion Randolph, and Derek Davenport. Also guys that don't have a lot of experience, but you know, we'll see how they handle college football. You know, we've seen the top 3 guys a little bit more, but it's definitely a very inexperienced group. We do also see D'Angelo Bryden take a nice step forward. He's a 68 overall. I really like him as a receiving tight end, but I think he works best as a tight end too. And I think that Tony Rogers will definitely take that tight end 1 role. Now, for our offensive line, I wanted to bring in some more offensive linemen. It just did not work out that way. It's still a decent offensive line, though. We'll have Andy Whaley as our left tackle. Chris Spence is going to be our left guard. He's a 75. Jimmy Goings is going to be a 73 overall. He just barely beats off Cal Joey, who's a 72, but went up a +6. At right guard, we'll have Sheldon Joey. He's going to be someone that is one of your guys' customs. He beats out Movington in spring ball. And then at right tackle, we'll have the true sophomore Darren Rich, who did start for us in spots last year, so hopefully that experience does help out. Now, over on the defensive line is going to be an interesting spot for us this year. We'll have the junior TJ Cannon step in. He's going to be somebody that is going to have to really step up this year. Didn't really see much of him. Didn't play any snaps in his college career, and he might be expected to play as starter. That could be really interesting, but more likely your starters at defensive end are going to be Chase Gentry, who started last year, and then David Kraft, who got some playing time last year as well. And at defensive tackle, we'll have Matt Scales back. He's a preseason All-American alongside Tony Marquardt and Caleb Crawford, there to provide depth. Now, at the linebacker spot, it's going to be some new faces on the linebacking core. Someone that could win the starting job is Dante Sims, if he doesn't lose out to the true freshman. We will also have Chris Gentry, who thought about transferring over to University of Louisiana Lafayette. Thankfully, we got him to stay, though, and that's a big deal for us because he's going to start at middle linebacker this year. And of course, we do have a little bit of stability with Josh Meadows starting at right outside linebacker. And then, of course, we got our corners. I think our corners are going to be pretty solid this upcoming season. Raroon Nugent's going to be the cute cornerback one. But then you could expect a rotation of guys like Willie Mason, Eddie Coolbeans as well, who's a freshman redshirt. We did redshirt him last year, and, I think he's going to play a big role this year. There's also some burners like Kevin Fuller, Seth Randolph, and Chase Gentry, guys to certainly watch out for as well. Free safeties are going to be the same as last year. We'll have Dan Daniel at the free safety spot. He's a junior now, with Eric Davis coming in as a junior as well. He's up to a 74 overall. With kicker, we did not sign any kickers or punters, so we're likely going to be stuck with Dustin Rose again. However, Tommy Wyatt, like I said, will not only handle the punting duties, but he will also handle the kicking duties this upcoming season too. But as we get late into the offseason, we do have to make some cuts. And a big reason why we got to go ahead and make some cuts is because we have too many players. We have 81 players on this team as of right now, and I usually like to cut from the bottom. So guys like Chris Sanders, I usually want to cut these guys, these free 50 overall something guys. I know they don't really have much of a chance to play, but because of position minimals, I'm going to definitely have to cut them, unfortunately. But some of these wide receivers, I got plenty of wide receivers, so these 60 overalls right here, I have definitely no problem in getting rid of. I'm not going to lose any sort of sleep over it. Like Doug Williams is going to be gone. We signed 3 strong safeties, by the way, so that's really my rationale there. Daniel Bass, I'm going to cut, as I will with Brent Harrell. And now things do get slightly interesting because I am not going to cut any of your custom guys. I'm not going to do it. Simply not going to happen, right? So unfortunately, what I'm probably going to do is these 63 overall guys, like Damon Pierce, the athlete that I was talking about, he's not going to make the team. Kobe Robertson, I don't think is going to make that team as well. Neither will the 2 strong safeties I was happy about. Terrence Jackson, I wanted to make this team, but he's just not good enough, bro. He is simply not good enough. And now we're down to one more cut. I'm going to look at around like the 67 overall guys, see if there's, maybe like a upperclassman, and it really comes down to either Ernie Jude or TJ Cannon. Do we want to keep either one of those guys? So we'll go ahead. We're going to start on the defensive side of the ball. There's only 2 defensive linemen, TJ Cannon and Edmund Ramsey, who is a true freshman. We do have 4 defensive linemen on the other side of the ball. So 6 defensive linemen is not bad. But we got a ton of wide receivers, guys. There's a lot of wide receivers in this group. So I really think the best course of action is Ernie Jude. I just gotta cut you, dude. I don't see a way for you to see the field necessarily. So Ernie Jude, you're gonna be my last cut, unfortunately. And that right there is going to make your final 70 team guys that are going to make your Memphis Tigers roster here for year number 5. So this offseason is leading up into the 2015 season, and something that I like to do when I have an older NCAA game is I like to go as if we are going through college football history in real time. So leading up to the 2015 season, there was actually not very many realignments that happened. The biggest one that did happen was the Navy midshipmen. They no longer became an independent school, and they actually did decide to join what is now called the American Conference. That name was fully embraced at this point. And what this does is that it brings our conference up to 12 teams. So we are going to be in the Western Division for the 2015 season. We're going to be in there with Houston, Navy, SMU, Tulsa, and the Tulane Green Wave. Those are going to be the 5 other teams that are in the division. And then the other teams on the East are Cincinnati, UConn, Eastern Carolina, Temple, UCF, and the University of Southern Florida. But another thing that did sadly happen was after the 2014 season, UAB did shut down its football program. So I can't get rid of UAB, obviously. This is the base game of NCAA 12. So what I ended up doing is that I made them an independent school. I might do something along the lines of maybe controlling them off screen, making sure that they don't bring anybody in, something crazy like that. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section with what you want me to do with UAB. It is pretty terrible that this did happen in their history, and I am glad that they will eventually bring their football program back a couple of seasons later. So now that we got all the actual off-season stuff out of the way, let's go ahead and show this schedule that we got for year number 5. We're going to start in non-conference play. We will open up at home, and we will take on the Virginia Cavaliers. Now, Cavaliers did not only have a Power 5 team, but they're also from a state that we actually have a pipeline to. Virginia is one of our pipeline states, and you know, this will be a great game for exposure purposes within that pipeline. So that's why I chose Virginia Cavaliers. And we also replaced an FCS game as well, because we put an FCS team back in year number 1. It'll be no fun to do that again, get that win chalked up. I wanted to have a little bit more difficult of a schedule. Now, speaking of difficulty, I think our most difficult game of the season that we'll have is against the Miami Hurricanes. They'll come in as the number 10 ranked team in the nation. That's our preseason ranking, so that'll be a good test for our program as well. Not to mention, we'll also take on Utah State as well as San Diego State from the Mountain West in order to wrap up our non-conference schedule. Now, that being said, when we get into non-conference play, we will have quite a few games. We will have start off on the road against Cincinnati as well as UConn. That'll start our season out, our first road games. And then we'll have USF at home. We'll have Tulane on the road, plus SMU as a home team. And then we'll end our season with a road game against Houston, as well as home games against the Tulsa Golden Hurricanes and the Navy Midshipmen, who make their first appearance in the American Conference. Now, we will have week number 15 as an automatic bye because we do have a conference championship now. And if that's the case, if we end up winning the West Division, we'll play the winner of the East Division for that conference championship. Best record does get the host at. In addition, I did went ahead and redshirt a couple of guys that are on our team, mostly on the offensive side of the ball. We did redshirt both of our quarterbacks that we brought in. Brian Verlorda and Leonel Parrish are both going to redshirt in their freshman year. I don't really need them right now. I think Joseph Thompson could be perfectly fine as the backup quarterback in the event that we have mop-up duty or Rownley Bell does get hurt. As for the running backs, I have a little bit of clear-cut roles for everybody. Tuvington's going to be my starter. But then Jace Mitchell, I'm going to give first shot at in terms of being that backup running back. Now, I did redshirt Lester Burns and Marcus Montgomery for this season. But if we get really thin at running back, like if the two guys that I mentioned get hurt, I'm not going to be afraid to remove that redshirt from either of those guys either. But then the only other adjustment that I did end up making was I redshirted one person on the defensive side of the ball. That's Randy McNeil. He'll be a redshirt freshman for us here, buried on the depth chart between Chase Gentry, who started last year, as well as David Kraft, who also got some playing time. Not to mention James Williams. He's a very talented freshman in his own right. Could get some early playing time as well. So while we don't have ourselves ranked in the top 25 to start this season, we are looking pretty good in terms of within conference play, having a very good shot of repeating for that conference title. One team that we will have to contest with is the Houston Cougars, and that will be a big game, but we also are probably the biggest program at this point in this side of the conference. We have mostly 2 stars in our conference like SMU, Tulane, and Tulsa, all decent football teams, but really it's just us in Houston. And then it looks like over on the east side, looks like Cincinnati is the favorite to win the East. Definitely got to watch out for UCF though, and can't sleep on USF, UConn, they're a 4-star program, Eastern Carolina, and even Temple might have a little bit of a shot as well. Both sides of the conference do seem fairly open. So next episode, we will officially kick off year number 5, and with the Virginia Cavaliers, I'm pretty excited about this opening game. Home game to start things out, taking on a solid Virginia squad from the ACC. We did go 1-0 versus the ACC last year when we did beat Duke. Let's see if we can take down another team from that same conference this season. So should be a good one, and I'm really excited to get things going here for year number 5. Let me know what you guys think about this offseason. Anything that really surprises you? How are you feeling about the UAB situation as well? Definitely quite a bit happening in this offseason. Bring in that top 10 class as well. But in the meantime, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you smash that like button for me. And then also hit the subscribe button as well if you do happen to be brand new to the channel, as I would truly appreciate that if you like sports gaming like I do. So with that being said, this is John J Gaming on the mic signing off. Hoping you guys are all out there having a good one. Take care, everybody.